So I just want to give you warning that I have a large dog who will bark as things are happening outside my door, and you may see a cat walk by the computer. So I apologize ahead of time, but so today I want to talk about systematic reviews, but I want to preface this by saying that I won't be teaching you how to do them. I'm just going to give you an introduction to systematic reviews. And this is coming from that, especially over the last year and a half over the pandemic, that so many grad level students have been tasked either themselves or by their supervisors to conduct some sort of systematic review. And many of these are outside of the health discipline. So systematic reviews come from health sciences. And if you are a member of the health sciences on campus, there are health sciences librarians that you would want to work with. And in fact, this presentation, this webinar, I've done it before with one of my health sciences colleagues. So, but more and more social sciences, engineering, humanities grad students are doing the systematic reviews. So I wanted to just give you an intro to it. Catherine is going to monitor the chat, so please feel free to put in your questions, and I will answer as many of them as possible. And those that I don't get to or can't answer immediately, I'll follow up with the answers. So please feel free to ask your questions. I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the chat coming up, so I'll try not to look at it. Let Catherine respond. So I'm going to share my screen because I've got a PowerPoint to share with you. And of course, I need to just get there. There we go. So it's titled Review Types and Developing a Structured Search Strategy, because that's very important to understand. So that's where we're going to start off. And so we're going to talk about the differences between the review types, well, some of the differences, and understanding the relationship of the question to the research process, because this is so important. And then looking at building a search, and then a little bit about the strategies, and I welcome any comments you have about your experiences, if you've done one, if you've tried one, or if you know anything about it that you'd like to share with the group. I'd like this to be as collaborative as possible. So again, please feel free to enter questions or comments in the chat. So there's a lot of use of the term systematic review, whether that is the best definition for what you're looking for or not. Sometimes it just depends on what you're looking for. So the knowledge, the knowledge synthesis is really the better way of explaining what the systematic review would fall under, which is a summary of all the pertinent studies on that question or topic. Whereas the literature review, which is something that many of us have done in our undergrads or in our grad programs, it's referring to that examination of the current literature. And it's not quite as complicated, the literature review. It's very important, but it's the summary and the scope of the synthesis that makes it so different, and that what we often will call the systematic review. Just 1 second. Cat's trying to get food. Okay. So there are many, many types of reviews or syntheses that fall under what we call systematic reviews. And here's just some of them. So we've got the actual systematic review. We've got scoping reviews, the qualitative evidence synthesis, narrative reviews, the mixed methods reviews, and there's more and more and more. There's 50 or 60 types. And again, they tend to fall under the umbrella of a systematic review, but there's a lot of variety. And it's important to realize that because the methodology could be different. The time frame is a huge factor, and the depth of the scope is also a factor in what type of review you're going to conduct. Now, this is pretty standard for the process. So when you are deciding or tasked that you're going to be doing a systematic review or some other review or synthesis, you need to first off identify the question. This is very challenging because it's so much more than even just having a researchable question, which is something that we help students with right from the beginning of undergrad through, is to be able to construct a question that is researchable. Not a yes and no, not something that is is just finding the answer by a quick search. Systematic review questions are very formulaic, and we'll talk about this a little bit. But the question creation is really what's going to get you in the right direction and help with your successful review. So you've got a question, you also have to select that review type. And again, some of that's going to be time frame, your methodology, your time, and the question, and what do you need to do the review for. Thirdly, it's developing a protocol. So when I have students come to me and say, okay, I need your help with this, I've got a protocol form. It's just something I've got that I share with students, and it works you through the design process. You can then register that protocol, or you can go to, oh my gosh, I've just, we'll come across the name, I've just drawn a blank. But the protocol is important because it really does work you through all of the elements that you need to pay attention to. It's an organizational tool. And then if you register it, I think Prisma is the program, then that is part of the systematic review process, and that is searchable. So the protocol is very important, regardless of whether you use it just for your organizational elements or whether you actually register it. And then building and executing that search. This is the second time that I could be useful for you, because I could help hone that search strategy. And this is another challenging part. How do I construct the search? And then thinking about, where do I go? I'm not sure what's going on with my screen, but anyways, play away. Then you're screening your articles, and you're using criteria that you've identified in your protocol. You are assessing them, and there's various ways of doing this and various degrees of doing this, hence the some debate. And then you write it up and proceed with that. So those steps are across the board. This is how you conduct the steps of the systematic review. Are there any questions related to this particular idea of what is involved?
We do actually have a few questions that have come in the chat, Leeanne.
Okay.
So one of them is asking for confirmation. Was it called Prospero, where you would register your protocol?
That's right. Thank you. I will get that there in the slideshow, but yes, Prospero. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the other one is a question. I'm guessing on the acronym. So I'm studying in MEEP, MEEP, wondering if systematic reviews would be part of that studies. I don't know if you're familiar. I'm not. with the acronym. So for our poster there, Nancy, if you have any clarifying information.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Okay.
Right.
Fair. Nancy, if you're listening, we will happily take any clarifying information on your question. Another question we've had come in, how does a systematic review differ from a traditional research paper? Now there's a question.
Well, and you will discover as we go through this how it is different. And really, I mean, there's a number of ways. It is a typical research paper is that you are doing some research, gathering information and content, and then incorporating it into your own knowledge base and producing a research paper with your own thesis. Just to keep that simple. The scoping review or the systematic review, whatever review type you're doing, is much more comprehensive in looking at the entirety of the information on that subject. And it is done in such a way as it's usually used to change policy or incorporate an intervention. So from the health sciences element, it would be looking at the body of research of those research papers to then look at the entirety of it and then extrapolate and say, the research is showing that this element, fill in the blank. So it's, this policy change, this intervention. So it is much bigger, and it is looking at all those research papers on the topic and looking at it in depth and having criteria that guides how you evaluate that information.
Great. We've had some questions wondering about specific disciplines, which I realize is not, we're not going to go too far down that area, but wondering about things like, public policy, so that basically the social sciences and humanities, kind of where would they fit in? I think we're getting a sense of, some of the great uses for this, but what would this look like for our SSH folks?
Yeah, and there isn't an area that you couldn't do a systematic review in. There are guides all over the internet, academic library guides that can talk about different disciplines, and maybe it's the methodology is a bit different. Of course, where you search is also different because databases are subject specific generally. And really, it could just be you're doing a systematic review as part of your own PhD research, right? So you're really, it's not a comprehensive exam, but it's somewhat thinking about it as it is very comprehensive look at the data, at the information and the data. And how it could be used. So again, it could be used for your own research dissertation. It could also be used for policy impact, for interventions, for identifying, maybe not so much for identifying gaps in the research so that you can fill that. That would be more of the literature review part, but it definitely can be part of your own research.
That's great. Thank you, Leeanne, because we're actually getting some questions related to the differences between literature reviews and the systematic review. And I think this is really helpful. And I'm guessing that some of this is going to be covered as you're going forward. So I'm thinking we'll let you, we've got one more question here, and then we'll let you kind of move into the next section so that we can. But a question, how comprehensive should a systematic review be when it's a required component of a larger research paper?
I don't know that a systematic review is typically part of a larger research paper. It is an entity on its own. And the comprehensiveness of like a full systematic review could take you up to 2 years. A rapid review you could do in 3 to 6 months, and what you do then is you scale it down. So it really is, this is part of the choosing your review type. So yeah, there's a lot of range in there, but systematic reviews are very big and weighty processes.
So this is where we're getting to see the difference between that lit review and the systematic review.
Right.
Definitely size and scope would be a defining characteristic.
And additionally, systematic reviews, or the reviews in general, require you to have a team. So you would have reviewers on your team. Typically, you would have a librarian on your team. And so it is not that isolated, you alone are doing your literature review, maybe asking a librarian for some guidance. There's a real team structure to it, and this is relatively required, especially if you're registering your systematic review. So
awesome. And our students are saying thank you.
You're welcome. These are big and challenging, and again, this is just an intro, so you will likely have more questions that you can also contact me directly with. So I'm happy to try and help understand a little bit more. So let's move on. So we talked about what is involved, but let's look at the role of the question. I had said how important this is, and here are some of the reason that it is so important. And one of the things here is developing the inclusion and exclusion criteria. This is very unique to systematic reviews versus literature reviews. There's the process of what am I going to look at and what am I not going to look at. But, you know, setting the parameters and really articulating the purpose. These are all really important elements. And again, having a good question is the first launching point for you to be able to do this, this huge, big project. Now, coming from health sciences, there are question frameworks, which PICO, the PICO is sort of the common one. But here are some more examples of how you can structure your question to apply to your systematic review. So, and I have to say, my experience is generally with the PICO, the PICO, Population Intervention Comparison and Outcome. But what this does is it allows you to structure your question, and whichever one of these or other frameworks you choose, structure your question in such a way that the elements that are required for you to move forward have been identified, right? So you need to know, you know, the population, who are you looking at, or who's the group that you're including in your question. Intervention or exposure, I mean, the intervention comes from health sciences, but that can be applied, and I've got some examples. What are you comparing it to, and what are you looking to see from it? So that's how a framework applies. So again, you find one that fits your discipline or your process, and then make sure that you have the elements that you're going to need to move forward. So for example, let's say your idea is what's the impact of COVID-19 on mental health? That's a huge question. Even for a lit review or any sort of research paper, it's too big. There's not enough information indicated there that's going to make it useful, right? Impacted on whom, or what do you mean by mental health? COVID-19, we can pretty much understand, but there's way more there to unpack. So in addition, right, comorbidities or pre-existing mental health or illness concerns. Of course, the comorbidity comes from health sciences, but you know, what else is there? Who are you asking? Like impact on who? What is the target age group? Is there, right, a profession? Is there a geographical region? Is there a specific location? What is the context? These are the type of questions that you need to ask yourself when you've got that general statement of interest. So you might instead say, what is the impact of COVID on the maternal mental health of women in New Delhi, right? You've got these elements, remembering the PICO, right? You've got population, you've got intervention, you've got a comparison, maybe not so much the comparison here, and the outcome. What do you want to know? So it's an example of how you break your question apart to identify the elements that you really want to know. So in this question, so how are COVID-19 related restrictions impacting the mental health of children aged 3 to 12? We've got those elements. And there's researchable aspects to this question, right? So they are COVID-19, mental health, and the children. So these are the areas that now you need to break apart. So yes, you can do this search. Doing this search, for example, this question is a good structure for a literature review, but there's more that we want to explore in creating this question. So for example, here's our categories: COVID, the restrictions. So this is the intervention part of it. The mental health, and the children. So we could do this search and we would get some answers, but what we want to do is we want to spend some time recognizing and identifying all of the subtext, all of the synonyms, and other related information that's buried under under these categories, right? So synonyms, the same way of asking, or similar way of asking for that term. Keywords, that's a good way to find other terminology for what you're looking at. There's controlled vocabulary. So in health databases, you will find the MESH headings, which are the medical subject headings, the CINAHL headings. So the health areas have done this very well, where they actually populate your search based on the terms you've used. But other databases also have their own index or thesaurus. And these are very good places to look to see, well, how else do I ask this question? So for example, COVID-19 can be broken down into these and more terms. So with restrictions, for example, well, what do you mean? So we've got some examples of what could be considered a restriction, especially in this context. Again, mental health, which specific issues or health concerns are you looking at? Because there's a lot. And then children, what do we mean by children? So you can see that there's different ways to ask it, but there's also different sort of categories in children that could be relevant. And it's important to go through this process, because then you can better understand what you're looking for, what you're asking for. It could also change your path a little bit, because maybe when you were thinking children, you thought preschooler, but by going through this process, maybe you are thinking, well, maybe I'm more interested in the preteen, right? So it's good to have, to break everything apart so that it helps you better understand exactly what you're looking for, and clearing your expectations. So for when you create questions, because it becomes much clearer than living in the sort of the ideas of what we just naturally fall to ourselves without doing any of the internal thinking about it. So this basic searching process, I mean, some of it's basic, some of it's a little bit more. The and or not process is fairly common, I think, for most of us in academia. You combine your similar words with and, you combine the different concepts with or, and you eliminate with not. Not is not always the easiest one to make useful, but it's still there for use. Putting phrases in quotation marks. So the example here is school closure. Often if you just do the terms, say just as school and closure, the database may and those, but that doesn't mean that that it's the specific concept of school closure. So if it's a known phrase, put quotations around it. The proximity searching, the example here is playground adjacent to close. That would be with the asterisks, which would be closing, close, closure, and any other version of sort of closing that could be identified. That's asking for those two words to be within two words of each other. So it's not necessarily a phrase, but it is an idea that you want to have connected. And then the nesting is, so you'll see that the parentheses combine the like terms. And so, this is, the distance is social or physical, and you want either of those terms within two words of distance and versions of distance, which is what the asterisk is asking for there. So the proximity and the nesting doesn't automatically get used in our advanced searching on the databases. For sure, the phrasing and the Boolean and or are not get used, but there are the additional features of, for example, proximity and nesting to use. Excuse me. Truncation, which are these symbols that ask the database to do some of the thinking and for you that you don't have to do. For example, if you put an asterisk, it's not always an asterisk. Each database has a search tips or a help. So you want to go there so you can see what that database wants from you. So for example, using the asterisk here would find all the words that start with child. So you don't have to type them in. You don't have to think about them. Let the database do it. The other example here, the color, this is asking for different spellings of that word, right? So we know in Canada and in Britain that there's a U added to the word color, or the same would be for neighbor. But by putting in this called wildcard, it is again asking the database to do the thinking for you. And and you can also limit by date range and language as ways to hone your, or to customize your search. Now, I'm just going to go back. This searching process, this is really the key place that you want to reach out to me as your grad studies librarian for help in structuring your search. I don't tell you what to do. I help you understand and create the question that's suited for your research. But this is sort of part of my professional skill, is helping you break that apart and build it up again. So this, again, searching, creating your search strategy is the ideal place to reach out to me. So what is different from a literature review would be, excuse me, that the search is done concept by concept and you develop it line by line. So you identify how you want your question to look, but then you do it piece by piece. It also, and I think I have an example, you also need to do it in one database at a time, and maybe alter the search for specific databases. So your database is very important. And again, because this is comprehensive, you are going to be very, very decisive about what databases you're going to look in. And often a search, I think always, a systematic review will require pre-searching. So you need to have an idea what database is going to work before it becomes your formal search process. So we have some here listed for the medical, the health sciences, the biomedical, the interdisciplinary ones. Web of Science is a great one to go to. there are databases for ethics, sociology, business. Like there's databases for almost every discipline that we would have at the university. And there are additional ones here that are new, that are Indigenous related. So if you're doing any searching on Indigenous populations, we have additional databases for you to look at. There's also, this is also a huge part of the knowledge synthesis, the systematic review process, is that there's gray literature. So the systematic review part, the database, there's certain tools that will pull from databases, but not everything is found in a database. So the gray literature, for example, we list here, these ones are often found in databases, but government documents and reports, for example, or data sets, you may have to go outside of the specific databases to go directly to websites, especially the government or industry sites, to find reports. That's also called hand searching in the systematic review process. So whereas the databases is very automated, and of course, pre-technology, you would literally go and flip through things to look for the information. So hand searching is when it's not the specific database that's generating results. You're actually going to look. For example, if you were doing a citation chain where you look at, what that paper has cited or who has cited it, that becomes the hand searching process. So there's lots of different ways to gather the sources of information. So here's an example of what our question looks like done in a Medline search. So as I said, health sciences databases are very good at creating the structured search. Here's an example of what COVID, mental health, and the children category looks like. So it is concept by concept, line by line. Not everything you do is going to produce something like this, but this is just an example. And it's quite complicated. And here's an example of what the what our search strategy would look like after our little table there, and using some of our search strategies. So the or terms here for child are grouped in the parentheses and joined by an and with the other concept, which also has some synonyms and some alternate ways of asking for that information. So this is, we've grouped, oh, sorry, I can move this. This line could be down. So we've got the child, we've got the distance, we've got the mental health, and we've got COVID. Oops, sorry. So that's what the search strategy looks like, or can look like. But then again, you do this concept by concept. And I'll just go along here. So you get some results. There's additional things you want to do. Like if you need to, you add more another concept that you do that in to narrow your results. You can limit by the type of study or methodology. You could limit by these, this is health related, but you could apply these as limits. You can apply date range, and you can apply language. So these are just some ways to narrow your results, to really focus in on the content that you're looking for. So before I move on to sort of managing that, are there any questions about this? Keeping in mind that this is challenging to really do well, and this is the perfect time to meet with me in a consultation to talk about these things for your research. So
Well, while we give everyone a few minutes, please feel free to put your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to them. While we give everyone a few moments to see if there are any questions, Leanne, I know that we do have 2 sessions upcoming with you. So one coming up on the 8th, which was getting to know the library and your librarian.
Yeah.
And also we have one, which I believe I want to say is scheduled for the 17th of September.
Yeah.
But we haven't finalized on that one yet. Are either of those going to be able to go a bit more into some of the searching or the databases, or even what a consultation would look like? Because I know that's not the purpose of what we're here for today.
Yeah.
But just in case, you know, this is kind of piquing curiosity of, well, maybe I should, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah. The getting to know your librarian in the library, I can absolutely go into a little bit more about what a consultation looks like, how to do it, how to set it up. And a little bit more about the resources in the library that will be helpful to you as the grad students. And then the one that will be coming on the 17th will introduce you to a whole bunch of different people in the library and how we can support your research. So again, that will be more of an intro, so you know who people are, what they do. And then the one on the 8th will be very specifically on how I can help you as grad students.
Perfect. And now the questions. See, we just had to give them a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question is nice and easy. If we're unable to attend the September 8th meeting, will it be posted afterwards? My guess is that yes, it will likely be posted afterwards.
Sure, I can record it and post it. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question here from Bonnie. Do you have recommendations regarding undergoing an initial understanding of specific databases? So are there tutorials that are commonly used for different databases? That's an interesting question.
Do you know, we don't have many at McMaster Library. There was a there was a movement in my department where we are trying to foster as much critical thinking around just providing the information. And bigger than that, though, is databases change all the time. So it's very hard to stay up on them. I would suggest just do a Google search for a specific database, and put in library in your search. And then there will be academic libraries that will have created sort of help guides. The other thing is just go to the database and go to their search and their help. So there's 2 different ways to go about that. I don't know everything about every database, nor do any of my colleagues. But you can also ask us. If you've done one of the other ones and you still need some more information, reach out to me or somebody else in the library if you happen to know one of the other librarians, and we'll see what kind of help we can get you. But there will be lots of libraries that will have done sort of tip sheets or some sort of video on using specific databases.
That's great. Thank you so much. We have one other question about booking consultations, because I can see that you are going to have a stampede of fans.
Yay.
And you know what? I would too. For everyone who's listening here, I can say that at my university, I was fortunate enough to have a consultation with our graduate librarian at the time. I didn't do my PhD at Mac. Honestly, it was the smartest and best thing that I ever did. And so I am always adamant about telling people, like, go and meet with your graduate librarian, because you know the databases, you know how these things are organized and can be found, can help widen out a search, sharpen questions, because you think about things from a different perspective. And so that's one of the greatest things. If someone's looking for information, Leanne, on booking a consultation, is there a booking site that they should go to?
when I get to the last slide, which has my email, I'll also take you to places that you can connect with me. How's that?
Perfect. All right. We promise to take you there before the end of today.
Yes, yes.
And yes, postdoctoral fellows are also eligible. Yes.
Absolutely.
I specifically asked before we opened this up. I made sure that postdocs are eligible, so you're all good.
And faculty, if there's any faculty here, or if you think that any of your supervisors should have a little bit of updated knowledge, send them my way. All right. So this part of the managing your results, you've done the search, is another thing that can make a systematic review very unique. The first one, not so much, but it's search accounts. Each database provides you with the opportunity to set up a free account in that database, or in that, like ProQuest. If you do it in one ProQuest database, it applies to all the ProQuest databases. It allows you to save your searches. It allows you to combine your searches, and it allows you to set search alerts so that the database will do the search for you and send you the new results. It's beautiful. Everybody should do that, regardless of that you're doing a systematic review. Set up these accounts and use them for that, especially the search alerts. But it does allow you to combine your searches. You do want to export them. Now, the other thing about saving an account is it will have it'll show your searches, so you could screenshot that or print it off. But you can also export your results, and so you would want to do that most likely into one of the citation management software. So McMaster does not provide access to any one in particular, which also means that we don't really have expertise in the range of them. But there's some things online, and the September 8th session, I'll show you more about getting sort of into that information. But you do want to use the citation management software. I use Zotero. Often, I think humanities and social sciences use Zotero. Often the sciences use Mendeley, but it's more about finding one that works for you. Those ones are free. EndNote has a free version, but it is still a subscription-based tool. There's also then ways that you run your data, your results through these softwares. Covidence is a subscription, but McMaster has a subscription to it. So it's on the health sciences page, but I can get you there. Rayan is free open source. My health sciences colleague likes it better than Covidence. And then Distiller SR is one that does have a fee. They're, they could have a student fee. I don't know too much about that one. But then what you do is you run your results through these tools as a way to do your inclusion exclusion. It's quite a process, but you do want to know about these for the actual managing your results. So in summary, you want to write your question. You want to have it be very formulaic, following one of the frameworks. You identify your concepts, you generate the related terms. This is very much like any sort of lit review, or like formal literature review, or doing any review research for a research paper. You select your resources, the developing the search and saving the search, then you translate and export. So it tends to be a little bit, it's a linear process. It's also iterative, right? Your question, it may take you a bit to get there. When you are doing your search, that may be iterative, that you have to do it a few times and change things. So even though I've got, it's a wavy line, there is a start and an end, and you could cycle around in that. Don't be too worried about that, that it's not set in stone each step of the way. So how's our time? Oh, we're doing pretty good because it gives lots of time for questions. You can see there that that's my email, romanel1@mcmaster.ca. Just to make it complicated, you could do lromane@mcmaster.ca. That one and that L can get look too similar. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to take you to the library webpage to show you quickly what you can do. So can you, I might have to reshare this. Can you see the McMaster Library homepage?
No, we can still see your PowerPoint screen.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, how about now?
Yes, we can now see the library.
Perfect. So there's so many ways to get a hold of me, but what do I want? So if you go here to research help, I'm just going to go into the planning your research. You will find here a request a research consultation. So this is the most direct way to get a hold of me. No, I shouldn't say that. This is the most direct way to share information about your research consultation needs. As soon as you indicate that you're a graduate student, it comes to me. So that's great. The other thing is if you reach out to me directly, I'm going to just make things complicated, and I'm going to get out of here because I don't want to further confuse you. If you email me directly, when I respond to you, I will also send a booking link. And that will then take you to a place where you can book an appointment directly with me. And in the information, there's the link to the research consultation form. So 2 ways to get there. And then we can just get busy. I'm going to say I'm going to be away next week. But otherwise, my job, I'm going to stop sharing. My job is to help you with your research, using the library, and if needed, connecting you to other people on campus that can help you. So that's literally my job. So if you're thinking, well, I don't want to bother her with a research consultation, please eliminate that thought from your mind, because it literally is what I am here to do. So.
Okay, you've heard that. We may need to just have that as a snippet of a recording. You're not bothering her. Send the email.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I'm going to repeat that going forward, Leeanne. We have a few questions that have come in. Okay. I'm going to go with what I think is the most straightforward first, though it does have some multiple parts to it. So if you have several searches from different databases, can you import all of the articles or results into a management system like Zotero? Yeah,
you would do it individually. So you would have your results from Web of Science, you would import those to Zotero. Then in your next database, import those to Zotero. Okay. The nice thing about these tools is you can book them, so you can organize them by library. So you can set up your systematic review library, or this research topic library. So yes. Okay. Absolutely.
Now, once you've this is part 2 now. Okay. So once you've exported all of your info and put it into Zotero or imported it, is there a way to automatically remove duplicates so that you have one central listing of all of your results?
I feel like I've put a plant in the audience. Yes, that's the beauty of these tools, is that they will do the deduplication for you. So dump your results in, then you ask it to deduplicate, and it will do that.
Where was this during my PhD? Okay, so we've had two other questions. I'm going to ask the simpler question first, and no, I'm not discriminating against the more open-ended question, I promise. McMaster University has a subscription to medical journals that's available to graduate students. So I think it's a question about graduate student access more than specific journals.
Yes. Yeah.
So graduate students have access to everything that any other researcher would.
Oh,
Correct?
gosh, absolutely. And although the health sciences library is a different entity than what we call the university libraries, we really are connected. So even if you're not a health sciences grad student, but a particular research question includes health sciences databases, you still have access to those databases. So.
Beautiful. That brings me to our more open-ended question. We have someone who is asking, can you describe more about systematic review software?
No. I don't know where to go with this. I am not yet the most knowledgeable on it. It really is the health sciences librarians.
Okay.
So for example, if you reached out to me directly with that question, I would connect you with one of them.
That's always fair.
Yeah, especially for using it. I could answer maybe a little bit about, like I did already, sort of what's it for, but the specific use of like Covidence or Rayan and stuff, the health sciences librarians, because they've been doing systematic reviews longer, they have more experience. I've only been the grad studies librarian for a year, not September is a year. So there's still so much I'm learning about grad specific things. So, yeah. But part of being a librarian is I know where to send you.
Exactly. So this is the thing, everyone. If you are thinking, oh, I don't know if Leeanne knows this, ask her. If she doesn't know, she'll point you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Never be afraid. And the same goes for any of us in graduate studies, by the way. If you have questions and you're not really sure, just ask us. And if we aren't the right people, we'll point you towards whomever it is. Do we have any other questions for Leeanne in our remaining moment or two? A new student is asking, we have a new student beginning in September, asking if they can use all the library resources now before they've even started. So do they have access? Can they start? I think you've inspired some desire for exploration.
Good. You need to have your Mac ID. If you do not yet have it, but you've got documentation stating that you are admitted as a grad student, you can reach out to the library, and I think it's just library@mcmaster.ca, and they can get you set up. Now, if you don't have your Mac ID and you don't have that documentation, you do have to wait, especially for online access. The library is not opening until I think September 7th or 8th. Now I can't remember. I just got a consultation request. That's so exciting. So when the library is open, I think even with, you could still go in and use books. But you do need your Mac ID to access anything electronically.
Yeah, so basically if you have your Mac ID, then you can start nosing around and exploring and learning some of the things that you talked about today. You don't have to wait until September the 8th to be able to, go ahead after our next session to be like, oh, I want to learn things. It's like if you've been inspired today, you can go ahead and try that out.
And of course, the library webpage, you don't need any authentication to use it. It's a regular web page, and there's an awful lot of information on it. So
yes, there is.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any further question? I see we have a lot of thank yous. You have a very grateful grad student and postdoctoral fellow audience. Thanks for all the information. A question: can we borrow laptops from libraries to use at home?
Sadly, no. A few years ago, we had that service, but no, we don't have it anymore. And quite honestly, all of the laptops in the library have been farmed out to staff that have had to work from home. So no, there is no laptop lending program anymore.
It's unfortunate, but also understandable.
Yeah.
Given our current and recent past. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And that seems like everyone is just very, very happy and grateful, as am I, Leanne.
I have just been thrilled to be here with you today, and thank you to everybody for coming. It's a weighty subject, and I know I just gave you a sort of an overview introduction to it, but I do hope that I've helped sort of clarify some things, and like we were saying, maybe lit a fire. If you need, I know you guys are like, dedicated, so you don't need fires, but we are here, and in particular, I am here for you. So please reach out.
Great. All right. Everyone is still so very grateful. I think you're going to have a fan base following you, Leanne.
Yeah.
And if you are listening, everyone, go and set up those reviews and those consultations to get help with your research. Reach out to Leanne with your questions. I want to see lots of questions going. We should have like a poll or a contest for the most interesting research questions that you're getting.
The ones that hurt the most.
That would be great.
Yeah.
All right. And on that note, thank you all very much for coming, and do keep an eye on the Grad Studies website for more events for you to sign up for, like this one. Reach out to Leanne, and if you need any information in the meantime, or you've forgotten how to reach out, you know where to find me, and I will happily connect anyone on to Leanne if you misplace that email address. But it's Romane L1@mcmaster.ca is how you can reach out directly to Leanne. And yes, the recording will be posted on the website within roughly 2 weeks after it has been closed captioned.